You've already decided to save more money, so why is that money still sitting in the same account? I don't think you're confused anymore, especially if you watched the last video in this series. And I definitely don't think you're lazy. I think every saving system you've ever been taught depends on one thing: that future you will make the right decision. And as long as your system depends on future you, nothing is going to change. Today, I'm going to show you how to remove future you from the equation completely. Here's the allocation stack. The allocation stack is not a budget. A budget is a decision you revisit every single month. The stack is a permanent structure built once, runs every paycheck cycle without a monthly decision. 4 layers. This sequence is non-negotiable. Now, the order that you fund these in matters more than any single account, but that will only make sense once you see all 4. So let's build it first, and then I'll show you the sequence that makes the whole thing run itself. Layer 1, the primary asset account. My aunt had a savings account that she was proud of, and growing up, I thought that's what responsible people did. You saved, you left it alone. The bigger the number got, the safer she was. And it wasn't just her. I still see this everywhere. Smart, high-earning people sitting on piles of safe money, calling it responsible, and wondering why they never feel ahead. I want you to keep my aunt in mind because we'll come back to her. Before bills, before groceries, before you check the balance and start doing the math in your head, 10% moves here first. This account has one requirement. The purchase must grow your earning power, your skill set, or your direct investment capacity. That could be a course, a coach, a certification, a therapist who helps you stop leaving money on the table, a business opportunity, or any revenue generating asset. If it grows you, it comes here. Everything else is an operating expense, and operating has its own account. There are 3 things that must happen before you start funding the primary asset account. It needs a name, a number, and a deadline. Not savings, your actual goal. Write it in the account nickname section. We'll write Executive Coach Fund deployed first quarter in 2027. When you see that name, you're not looking at a balance. You're looking at a decision that you've already made. When you hit that number, you deploy it on the thing you named, no later than the deadline. Then the account resets. New name, new number, new deadline. You are always funding the next version of yourself. Now, if you're carrying debt, you're probably already arguing with me in your head. That's great, but I can't invest in myself if I already owe money. Remember, you are the primary asset. Everything you build on you. So the first dollar every month has to go toward making you worth more financially, not towards somebody else's balance sheet. Which is why if you're carrying high interest consumer debt, credit cards, or personal loan, car loan, your primary asset account has its first assignment. An interest rate of 24 to 29% is the single highest guaranteed return you can get right now. Nothing you invest in will reliably beat that. Paying it down isn't putting off investing in yourself. It is investing in yourself. You're buying back the money that debt takes before you ever see it. So same thing, name the account so it's not abstract. You can call it credit card elimination, cleared by December 2027. It's the same framework. Clear what's bleeding you first, then send that same dollar toward growth. Remember, this account never sits idle. It gets named, funded, deployed, and restarted. That's the entire model for the first layer. That's your 10%, the money that actually builds you. Fund this first and you've already done what most people never do. But here's the problem with putting everything towards growth. The first time life throws something at you, you dip into it. That's what layer 2 is for. Layer 2 is the Chaos Absorption Account. We set this up in the last video. It's a small flat buffer that automatically refills. Its only job is to absorb life's friction without crashing the entire stack. If something costs more than the buffer, that's what layer 3 is for. My aunt didn't have this layer, and something always came along. A car would break down, Christmas would come, or somebody would need help. The savings would take a hit and slowly refill to the same number over and over and over again. It never got to grow, it just kept patching the hole. So that's layer 2, a shock absorber. That means your stack never crashes when life hits. Set it once and it defends itself. Now, most people would stop here and call this the emergency fund. They would be wrong about where it goes. Here's why it's layer 3 and not layer 1. Layer 3 is your emergency fund. And I know everyone already knows what this one is, and that's exactly the problem. Everyone can define it, but almost no one uses it right. An emergency fund isn't about emergency, it's about decision. There are 2 ways people get this wrong. Mistake 1 is not knowing where it goes. Mistake 2 is not knowing when to stop. Mistake 1, Most people make the emergency fund layer 1. They call it security, they call it adulting, and then they wonder why their wealth never moves. Because every dollar is piling up instead of funding the thing that grows them. Building it first isn't being responsible, it's being scared. Fund the thing that grows you first, and then fund the thing that lets you take risks. Because a fully funded emergency account isn't a safety blanket, it's permission. Permission to leave the job that's been underpaying you, permission to take the contract that feels risky, permission to bet on yourself without everything collapsing around you. The emergency fund doesn't make you rich, it makes calculated risk possible. When to stop? An emergency fund has a ceiling. It's anywhere between 3 and 6 months. And the day it hits that number, the transfers stop. It's not meant to be a portfolio. Every dollar that you let pile up above that cap is sitting at 3 to 4% while your primary asset compounds somewhere else. You need a number and a date for this account too. Not someday, an actual date. The moment it's funded, it's done. You stop feeding it and you start building everywhere else. For many people, including my aunt, this is the financial cost in plain sight. 30 years of saving, and at the end, it was basically the same number it always was. 3 decades of discipline, and the money never became anything. It just sat and it never grew. Nobody around her ever asked her the one question that would have changed everything for her. So I'll ask you, what is this money supposed to build? Most people get this wrong. They think a bigger number is a win. It isn't. The goal is never a bigger number. The goal is what that number lets you do. Stop storing money that should be serving you. So now your foundation is set, which raises the obvious question, what's left to spend? That's layer 4, and that's the one that runs your whole month. Layer 4, the operating account. Layer 4 is your operating account. Most people call this their checking account. Call it whatever you want. The point is what it means. By the time your money lands here, every important job is already done. Bills, groceries, everything discretionary. This is your life, and it runs on the remainder on purpose. The money that reaches you here is already free to spend. No guilt, no math. That's the whole reward of layer 4. Spending that doesn't cost you your future. One note before we keep going. When your income grows, the 10% scales itself. 10% of 100K is 10,000. 10% of 150K is 15,000. Same percentage, more fuel into layer 1 without touching a single transfer setting. Your operating or checking account can grow too, but that's a decision you make on purpose after you run the numbers, not the second you get a raise, because the gap between income went up and lifestyle went up to match is the exact place where wealth is either built or quietly spent. So that's the stack. 4 layers, every dollar with a job. Now you're probably wondering, which layer do you add savings to? There is no savings layer. Not because saving is bad, but because savings isn't a place you put money. It's a job you haven't assigned yet. A dollar sitting in savings is a dollar with no decision attached to it. So the moment you're debt-free and you're past layer 4, you don't save. You give every dollar a target. That can be a retirement contribution. It could be the exact amount for a down payment as long as you have a specific date attached to it. It can even be the cost of a trip you want to take, again, as long as you have a specific date attached to it. Remember, it has to be clear, intentional, and on purpose. Nothing just sits anymore. So now you've got all 4 layers. The only thing left is the part that makes it automatic, the order and the timing. So here's the sequence. If you're bracing for the part where this gets complicated, it's actually the opposite. This is the part where it gets a little boring, and that's the point. Boring is what running on its own actually looks like. So payday, day 0, income lands. If you get a steady paycheck, call payroll before your next pay cycle. Split the direct deposit, 10% to the primary asset account, the rest to your operating account or your checking account. That 10% never arrives in your main account. You never see the full number. You cannot make a decision against money that isn't there. If you have a variable income, set a standing transfer. 10% fires within 24 hours of every deposit. Day 1, your Chaos Absorption refill fires. It's a flat amount back to your buffer. Day 1 to 2, your emergency fund contribution fires. Remember, it's a fixed number every pay cycle until you reach that goal. Day 2, your operating account runs your life on what's left over. The reason why we stagger these by 24 hours is because if every transfer fires simultaneously on a tight balance, one thin moment cascades into failed transfers across every layer. The stagger protects the entire structure. so build it in. So let's talk about the one manual step in this whole design. It's the one thing that's standing between the system that runs itself forever and one that quietly breaks down in 90 days. Most banks won't redirect a transfer automatically once your saving goal is hit. So during today's setup, you're doing two things: setting the transfers and setting a calendar date for when your emergency fund is fully funded. When the date comes, one login, one redirect. That is the only manual decision left in this entire system. You're making it now, not then. After that, the stack makes every allocation call for you. There's no decision left to fail at. My aunt taught me responsible meant protecting money. It took me years to learn. Responsible means giving it a job. Those aren't two habits, they're two entire lives. Here's what I need you to sit with. You already have the account she was so proud of. The only difference between her 30 years and your next 10 is whether you ask yourself the question she never did. Whenever you name your primary asset account, drop it in the comments below. I want to know the goal and the deadline. I'll also add the current name of my own primary asset account in the comments below.